Okay. All right, let's see if we can do a Bible reading. I'm on AV23, which is going to be Joshua. Let's get back down to Joshua. There we go. It'll be Joshua chapter 12 all the way to chapter 20. Okay, let's do it. Joshua chapter 12. And then let me throw my headphones on. All right. Joshua 12. Now these are the kings of the land whom the Israelites defeated, whose land they took possession of on the east side of the Jordan, from the Arnon Valley up to the Hermon, and all the Arabah toward the east. King Sihon of the Amorites, who lived in Heshbon and ruled from Aroer, which was on the rim of the Arnon Valley, and from the middle of the valley, and half of Gilead as far as the valley of Jabbok, the boundary of the Ammonites. He also ruled over the Arabah as far as the Sea of Chinnereth, toward the east, and far as the Sea of Arabah, the Salt Sea, to the east in the direction of Beth Jeshemoth, and toward the south under the slopes of Pisgah. Also the territory of King Og of Bashan, who was one of the last of the Rephaim, and who lived in Ashtaroth and Edrei, and ruled in Mount Hermon, in Salakah, and all Bashan, as far as the boundary of the Geshurites and the Maacathites, and half of Gilead, to the territory of King Sihon of Heshbon. Moses the servant of Jehovah and the Israelites defeated them, after which Moses the servant of Jehovah gave their land as a possession to the Reubenites, the Gadites, and half the tribe of Manasseh. These are the kings of the land whom Joshua and the Israelites defeated on the west side of the Jordan, from Baal-gad in the valley of Lebanon, and as far as Mount Halak, which goes up to Seir. After which Joshua gave their land to the tribes of Israel as a possession by their shares, in the mountainous region, in the Shephelah, in the Arabah, on the slopes, in the wilderness, and in the Negeb, the land of the Hittites, the Amorites, the Canaanites, the Perizzites, the Hivites, and the Jebusites. The king of Jericho, one, the king of Ai, which was beside Bethel, one, the king of Jerusalem, one, the king of Hebron, one, the king of Jarmuth, one, the king of Lachish, one, the king of Eglon, one, the king of Gezer, one, the king of Debir, one, the king of Geder, one, the king of Hormah, one, the king of Arad, one, the king of Libnah, one, the king of Adullam, one, the king of Makkedah, one, the king of Bethel, one, the king of Tappuah, one, the king of Hepher, one, the king of Aphek, one, the king of Lasharon, one, the king of Madon, one, the king of Hazor, one, the king of Shimron Meron, one, the king of Akshaph, one, the king of Taanach, one, the king of Megiddo, one, the king of Kadesh, one, the king of Jokneam in Carmel, one, the king of Dor on the slopes of Dor, one, the king of Goim in Gilgal, one, the king of Tirzah, one, a total of 31 kings. Joshua 13. Now Joshua had grown old and was advanced in years. So Jehovah said to him, You have grown old and advanced in years, but much of the land remains to be taken in possession. This is the land remaining, all the regions of the Philistines and the Geshurites, from the branch of the Nile that is east of Egypt up to the border of Ekron to the north, which used to be considered Canaanite territory, including that of the 5 lords of the Philistines, the Gazites, the Ashdodites, the Ashkelonites, the Gittites, and the Ekronites, that of the Avim. To the south, all the land of the Canaanites, Mearah, which belongs to the Sidonians, as far as Aphek, to the border of the Amorites, the land of the Gebalites, and all of Lebanon toward the east, from Baal Gad at the base of Mount Hermon to Lebo Hamath, all the inhabitants of the mountainous region from Lebanon to Misrephothmaim, and all the Sidonians. I will drive them out before the Israelites. You have only to assign it to Israel as an inheritance, just as I have commanded you. Now you must apportion this land as an inheritance to the 9 tribes and the half-tribe of Manasseh. With the other half-tribe, the Reubenites and the Gadites took their inheritance that Moses gave them on the east side of the Jordan, just as Moses, the servant of Jehovah, had given them. From Aroer, which is on the valley of the Arnon Valley, and the city that is in the middle of the valley, and all the tableland of Medeba as far as Dibon, and all the cities of King Sihon of the Amorites who reigned in Heshbon, up to the border of the Ammonites, also Gilead and the territory of the Geshurites and the Maacathites, and all Mount Hermon and all Bashan as far as Salakah, all the royal realm of Og and Bashan, who reigned in Ashtaroth and in Edrei. He was one of the last of the Rephaim. Moses defeated them and drove them out, but the Israelites did not drive out the Geshurites and the Maacathites, for Geshur and Maacath live in the midst of Israel to this day. It was only to the tribe of the Levites that he did not give an inheritance. The offerings made by fire to Jehovah, the God of Israel, are their inheritance, just as he promised them. Then Moses gave an inheritance to the tribe of the Reubenites by their families, and their territories was from Aroer, which was on the rim of the Arnon Valley, and the city in the middle of the valley, and all the tableland of by Medeba, Heshbon and all its towns on the tableland, Dibon, Bamoth Baal, Beth Baal, Maon, Jahaz, Kedemoth, Mephaath, Kiriathaim, Sibmah, and Zereth-Shahar on the mountain of the valley, Beth Peor, the slopes of Pisgah, Beth Jeshemoth, all the cities of the tableland, and all the royal realm of King Sihon of the Amorites who reigned in Heshbon. Moses defeated him and the Midianite chieftains Evi, Rechem, Zur, Hur, and Reba, vassals of Sihon, who were dwelling in the land. Balaam, the son of Beor, the diviner, who was one whom the Israelites killed with the sword, along with the rest who were slain. The boundary of the Reubenites was the Jordan, and this territory was the inheritance of the Reubenites by their families, with the cities and their settlements. Furthermore, Moses gave an inheritance to the tribe of Gad, the Gadites by their families, and their territory included Jazer, and all the cities of Gilead, and half of the land of the Ammonites, as far as Aroer, which faces Rabbah, and from Heshbon to Mizpeh, and Betoinim, and from Mahanaim to the border of Debir, and in the city, or in the valley, Beth Haram, Beth Nimrah, Succoth, and Zaphon, the rest of the royal realm of King Sihon and of Heshbon, with the Jordan as the border from the lower end of the Sea of Chinnereth on the east side of the Jordan. This was the inheritance of the Gadites by their families, with the cities and their settlements. Further, Moses gave an inheritance to half the tribe of Manasseh, to half of the tribe of Manasseh by their families, and their territory extended from Mahanaim, and took in all of Bashan, all the royal realm of King Og of Bashan, and all the tents of Jair, in Bashan 60 towns, and half of Gilead, and Ashtaroth, and Edrei. The cities of the royal realm of Og and Bashan went to the sons of Machir, the son of Manasseh, to half of the sons of Machir by their families. These were the inheritances that Moses gave them on the desert plains of Moab, beyond the Jordan, east of Jericho. But to the tribe of the Levites, Moses did not give them an inheritance. Jehovah, the God of Israel, is their inheritance, and as he promised them. Joshua 14. Now this is what the Israelites took as an inheritance in the land of Canaan, which Eleazar the priest and Joshua the son of Nun and the heads of the paternal houses of the tribes of Israel gave them to inherit. Their inheritance was by lot, just as Jehovah had commanded through Moses for the 9.5 tribes. Moses had given the inheritance of the other 2.5 tribes on the other side of the Jordan, and to the Levites he did not give an inheritance among them. The descendants of Joseph were considered two tribes, Manasseh and Ephraim, and they did not give a share of the land to the Levites, except cities to dwell in, and their pastures for their livestock and their property. So the Israelites apportioned the land just as Jehovah had commanded Moses. Then the men of Judah approached Joshua and Gilgal, and Caleb, the son of Jephunneh, the Kenizzite, said to him, "You will know what Jehovah said to Moses, the man of the true God, about you and me at Kadesh Barnea. I was 40 years old when Moses, the servant of Jehovah, sent me out of Kadesh Barnea to spy out the land, and I returned with a forthright report. Although my brothers who went up with me caused the people to lose heart, I followed Jehovah my God wholeheartedly. Moses swore on that day, saying, 'The land on which your foot has walked will become a lasting inheritance for you and your sons, because you have followed Jehovah my God wholeheartedly. Now, just as he has promised, Jehovah has preserved me alive these 45 years since Jehovah made this promise to Moses when Israel walked in the wilderness. I am still here today, 85 years old, and today I am as strong as on the day Moses sent me out. My strength is now as it was then for war and for other activities. Therefore, give me this mountainous region that Jehovah promised on that day. Though you heard on that day that there were Anakim, there were great fortified cities, surely Jehovah will be with me, and I will drive them out just as Jehovah has promised.' So Joshua blessed him and gave Hebron to Caleb, the son of Jephunneh, as an inheritance. That is why Hebron belongs to Caleb, the son of Jephunneh, the Kenizzite, as an inheritance to this day, because he followed Jehovah the God of Israel wholeheartedly. The name of Hebron was previously Kiriath Arba. Arba was the great man among the Anakim, and the land had rest from war." Joshua 15. The land allotted to the tribe of Judah for their families extended to the boundary of Edom, the wilderness of Zin to the Negeb at its southern end. Their southern boundary ran from the extremity of the Salt Sea, from the bay that faces southward, and it extended south to the ascent of Akrabim, passed over to Zin, and went up from the south to Kadesh Barnea, over to Hezron, up to Adar, and went around toward Karka. Then it passed on to Asmon and extended to the Wadi of Egypt, and the boundary extended at the sea. This was their southern boundary. The eastern boundary was the Salt Sea, up to the end of the Jordan, and the boundary at the northern corner was at the Bay of the Sea at the end of the Jordan. The boundary went up to Beth Hagla and passed over at the north of Betharabah. At the boundary went up the stone of Bohan, the son of Reuben. The boundary went up to Debir at the valley of Achor and turns northward toward Gilgal, which is in front of the ascent of Adumim, that is south of the Wadi. And the boundary passed over the waters of En-Shemesh and ended at Enrogel. The boundary went up to the valley of the son of Hinnom, to the slope of the Jebusite at the south, that is, Jerusalem, and the boundary went up to the top of the mountain that faces the valley of Hinnom to the west, which is at the extremity of the valley of Rephaim to the north. And the boundary was marked from the top of the mountain to the spring of the waters of Nephtoah, and extended to the cities of Mount Ephron, and the boundary was marked to Baalah, that is, Kiriath Jearim. The boundary went around from Baalah westward to Mount Seir, and passed around to the slope of Mount Jearim at the north, that is, Chesalon, and it went down to Bethshemesh, and passed over to Timnah. And the boundary extended to the slope of Ekron to the north, and the boundary was marked to Shikaron, and passed over to Mount Baalah, and extended to Jabneel, and the boundary ended at the sea. Here we go. The western boundary was the Great Sea and its coast. This was the boundary of the descendants of Judah by their families on all sides. And to Caleb, the son of Jephunneh, he gave a share among the descendants of Judah at the order of Jehovah to Joshua, namely Kiriath Arba. Arba was the father of Anak, that is Hebron. So Caleb drove out from there the three sons of Anak, Sheshai, Ahiman, and Talmai, descendants of Anak. Then he went up from there against the inhabitants of Debir. The name of Debir was previously Kiriath Sepher. Caleb then said, to the man who strikes Kiriath Sepher and captures it, I will give my daughter Aksah as a wife. And Othniel, the son of Kenaz, Caleb's brother, captured it. So he gave him his daughter Aksah as a wife. While she was going home, she urged him to ask her father for a field. Then she dismounted from her donkey. Caleb asked her, what do you want? She said, please grant me a blessing, for you have given me a piece of land in the south. Give me also Gulath Maim. So he gave her Upper Gulath and Lower Gulath. This was the inheritance of the tribe of Judah by their families. The cities at the extremity of the tribe of Judah toward the boundary of Edom in the south were Kabzeel, Eder, Jagur, Kinnah, Dimonah, Adadah, Kedesh, Hazor, Ithnan, Ziph, Telem, Baalath, Hazor Hadatah, and Kerioth Hezron, that is, Hazor. Amam, Shema, Malada, Hazargadah, Heshmon, Beth Pelet, Hazar Shual, Beersheba, Biziothia, Baalah, Eim, Ezem, Eltolad, Chesil, Hormah, Ziklag, Madmanah, Sansana, Lebaoth, Shilhim, Ain, and Rimmon, a total of 29 cities together with their settlements. In the Shephelah there were Eshtaol, Zorah, Ashna, Zanoah, Enganim, Tapua, Enam, Jarmuth, Adulam, Soko, Azekah, Sha'araim, Adithaim, and Gederah, and Gedeorethaim, 14 cities and their settlements. Zainan, Hadashah, Migdalgad, Dilian, Mizpeh, Joktheel, Lachish, Bozkath, Eglon, Kaban, Lamam, Chitlish, Gederath, Bethdagon, Neemah, and Makkedah, 16 cities and their settlements. Libnah, Ether, Ashan, Iftah, Ashna, Nezib, Keilah, Akzib, and Marishah, 9 cities and their settlements. Ekron and its dependents, towns and its settlements. From Ekron westward, all that is alongside Ashdod and their settlements. Ashdod, its dependent towns and its settlements. Gaza, its dependent towns and its settlements, down to the Wadi of Egypt, the Great Sea, and the adjacent region. And in the mountainous region, Shamir, Jatir, Soko, Dana, Kiryas Sanah, that is Debir, Anab, Eshtemo, Anim, Goshen, Holon, and Gilo, 11 cities and their settlements. Arab, Duma, Ishan, Janim, Beth Tapua, Aphekah, Humta, Kiriath Arba, that is Hebron, and Zior, 9 cities and their settlements. Ma'an, Carmel, Ziph, Jutah, Jezreel, Jokdeam, Zanoah, Cain, Gibeah, and Timnah, 10 cities and their settlements. Halhu, Bethzur, Gedor, Ma'arath, Bethanath, and Eltekon, 6 cities and their settlements. Kirioth Baal, that is Kirioth Jearim, and Rabbah, 2 cities and their settlements. In their wilderness, Bethar Abba, Midin, Sekakah, Nibshan, the city of salt, and En-Gedi, 6 cities and their settlements. As for the Jebusites who were dwelling in Jerusalem, the men of Judah were not able to drive them away, so the Jebusites continued dwelling with the people of Judah in Jerusalem to this day. Joshua 16. And the land that fell by lot to the descendants of Joseph was from the Jordan at Jericho to the waters east of Jericho, through the wilderness going up from Jericho into the mountainous region of Bethel. It extended from Bethel belonging to Luz and continued to the boundary of the Archites at Ataroth. Then it went down westward to the boundary of Japhletites as far as the boundary of lower Beth-horon and Gezer, and it ended at the sea. So Joseph's descendants, Manasseh and Ephraim, took possession of their land. The boundary of the descendants of Ephraim by their family was as follows. The boundary of their inheritance to the east was Ataroth Hadar, as far as Upper Beth-horon, and the boundary extended to the sea. Michmethath was on the border, and the boundary went around east to Taanath Shiloh, and it passed on to the east to Genoa. Then it went down from Genoa at Ataroth and Naarah and reached to Jericho and extended to the Jordan. From Tapua, the boundary continued westward to the Wadi of Cana, and it ended at the sea. This is the inheritance of the tribe of Ephraim by their families. The descendants of Ephraim also had enclave cities in the midst of the inheritance of Manasseh, all the cities and their settlements. But they did not drive away the Canaanites who were dwelling in Gezer, and the Canaanites continued to dwell with Ephraim to this day, and have been subjected to forced labor. Okay. Joshua 17. Then the lot fell for the tribe of Manasseh, because he was Joseph's firstborn. Since Machir, the firstborn of Manasseh and the father of Gilead, was a man of war, he received Gilead and Bashan. And the lot fell for the rest of the descendants of Manasseh according to their families, for the sons of Abiezer, the sons of Helek, the sons of Asriel, the sons of Shechem, the sons of Hefer, and the sons of Shemida. These were the descendants of Manasseh, the son of Joseph, the males according to their families. But Zelophehad, the son of Hefer, the son of Gilead, the son of Machir, the son of Manasseh, did not have sons, only daughters. And these were the names of his daughters: Mahlah, Noah, Haglah, Milcah, and Tirzah. So they presented themselves before Eleazar the priest, Joshua the son of Nun, and the chieftains, saying, "It was Jehovah who commanded Moses to give us an inheritance among our brothers." So at the order of Jehovah, he gave them an inheritance among the brothers of their father. There were also 10 allotments that fell to Manasseh, apart from the land of Gilead and Bashan, which were on the other side of the Jordan. For the daughters of Manasseh received an inheritance along with his sons, and the land of Gilead became the property of the rest of the descendants of Manasseh. And the boundary of Manasseh was from Asher to Michmethath, which faces Shechem, and the boundary continued toward the south to the land of the inhabitants of Tapua. The land of Tapua became Manasseh's, but Tapua on Manasseh's boundary belonged to the descendants of Ephraim. And the boundary went down to the Wadi of Cana, south of the Wadi. There were cities of Ephraim among the cities of Manasseh, and the boundary of Manasseh was on the north of the Wadi, and it ended at the sea. To the south it belonged to Ephraim, and to the north it belonged to Manasseh, and to the sea was his boundary. And on the north they reached to Asher, and the east to Issachar. In the territories of Issachar and Asher, Manasseh was given Beth-shean and its dependent towns, Iblaim, and its dependent towns, the inhabitants of Dor, and its dependent towns, the inhabitants of Endor, and its dependent towns, the inhabitants of Ta'anak, and its dependent towns, and the inhabitants of Megiddo, and its dependent towns, 3 of the heights. But the descendants of Manasseh were not able to take possession of these cities. The Canaanites persisted in dwelling in the land. When the Israelites grew strong, they subjected the Canaanites to forced labor, but they did not drive them out entirely. The descendants of Joseph said to Joshua, "Why have you given us an inheritance of only one lot and one allotment? We are a numerous people, for Jehovah has blessed us until now." Joshua replied to them, "If you are such a numerous people, go up to the forest and clear out a place for you there in the land of the Perizzites and the Rephaim, since the mountainous region of Ephraim is too cramped for you." Then the descendants of Joseph said, "The mountainous region is not enough for us, and all the Canaanites who are dwelling in the land of the valley have war chariots with iron scythes, both those in Beth-shean and its dependent towns, and those in the valley of Jezreel." So Joshua said to the house of Joseph, to Ephraim and Manasseh, "You are a numerous people, and you have great power. You will not receive only one lot, but the mountainous region will also be yours. Although it is a forest, you will clear it, and it will be the extremity of your territory. For you will drive away the Canaanites, even though they are strong and have war chariots with iron scythes." Joshua 18. Then all the assembly of the Israelites congregated at Shiloh, and they set up a tent of meeting there, as the land was now subdued before them. But there were still 7 tribes left of the Israelites whose inheritance had not been allotted. So Joshua said to the Israelites, "How long will you put off going in to take possession of the land that Jehovah, the God of your forefathers, has given you. Give me 3 men from each tribe and send out. They should go out and walk throughout the land and map it according to their inheritance. Then they should return to me. They must apportion it among themselves into 7 shares. Judah will remain in his territory to the south, and the house of Joseph will remain in their territory to the north. As for you, map out the land into 7 shares and bring them here to me, and I will cast lots here for you before Jehovah our God. But the Levites will not be given a share among you, because the priesthood of Jehovah is their inheritance. And Gad, Reuben, and half the tribe of Manasseh have already taken their inheritance on the east side of the Jordan, which Moses, the servant of Jehovah, gave them. The men prepared to go, and Joshua commanded those who were to map out the land. Hold on one sec. 20, okay. Go and walk through the land and map it and return to me, and I will cast lots for you here before Jehovah in Shiloh. With that, the men went and traveled through the land and mapped it out by cities into 7 shares, recorded into a book. After that, they returned to Joshua at the camp of Shiloh. Joshua then cast lots for them in Shiloh before Jehovah. There Jehovah apportioned the land to the Israelites by their shares. The lot came up for the tribe of Benjamin by their families, and the territory of their lot was between the people of Judah and the people of Joseph. On the north side, their boundary started at the Jordan, and the boundary went up to the slope of Jericho on the north and went up to the mountain westward, and it extended to the wilderness of Bethaven. And the boundary continued from there to Luz, at the southern slope of Luz, that is Bethel. The boundary went down to Ataroth Adar, on the mountain that is south of lower Beth-horon. And the boundary was marked at the western side and went around toward the south from the mountain that faces Beth-horon to the south. It ended at Kiriath Baal, that is Kiriath Jearim, the city of Judah. This is the western side. The south side was from the extremity of Kiriath Jearim, and the boundary extended westward and went out to the spring of the waters of Nephtoah. The boundary went down to the extremity of the mountain that faces the valley of the son of Hinnom, which is in the valley of Rephaim to the north, and it went down to the valley of Hinnom, to the valley of the Jebusite on the south, and down to En-Rogel. And it was marked northward and extended to En-Shemesh, and then went out to Gileath, which is the front of the ascent of Adumim, and it went down to the stone of Bohan, the son of Reuben. And it continued to the north slope in the front of Arabah, and went down to the Arabah, and the boundary continued to the north slope of Beth Hoglah, and the boundary ended at the northern bay of the Salt Sea, at the southern end of the Jordan. This was the south boundary, and the Jordan served as its boundary on the eastern side. This was its inheritance, or the inheritance of the descendants of Benjamin by their families, according to its boundaries on all sides. And the cities of the tribe of Benjamin by their family were Jericho, Beth Hoglah, Emekkeziz, Beth Arabah, Zemaraim, Bethel, Avim, Para, Oprah, Shephar Ammoni, Ophni, and Geba, 12 cities and their settlements, Gibeon, Ramah, Beeroth, Mizpah, Chephirah, Moza, Rechem, Irpeel, Tarala, Zela, Hagaleth, Jebusi, that is Jerusalem, Gibeah, and Kiriath, 14 cities and their settlements. This was the inheritance of the descendants of Benjamin and by their families. Joshua 19. Then the second lot came out for Simeon, for the tribe of Simeon by their families, and their inheritance was within the inheritance of Judah. Their inheritance was Beersheba, with Sheba, Balada, Hazar-Shual, Bala, Ezem, El-Tolad, Bethel, Hormah, Ziklag, Beth Markaboth, Hazar-Susa, Beth-Lebaoth, and Sharuhen, 13 cities and their settlements. Ain, Ramon, Ether, and Ashan, 4 cities and their settlements, and all the settlements that were around the cities, as far as Baalath Beer, Ramah of the south. This was the inheritance of the tribe of Simeon by their families. The inheritance of the descendants of Simeon was taken out of the allotment of Judah because the share of Judah was too large for them. So the descendants of Simeon received a possession within their inheritance. Next, the third lot came up for the descendants of Zebulun by their families, and the boundary of their inheritance went as far as Sarid. Their boundary went up westward to Mariel and reached the Debesheth, and then to the valley in front of Jokneam. And it went from Sarid eastward toward the sunrise to the border of Chishlath Tabor, and out to Dabarath, and then up to Jephiah, and from there it continued eastward toward the sunrise to Gathhefer, to Ethkazin, and out to Rimmon, and it extended to Nea. And the boundary went around it on the north to Hanathon, and it ended at the valley of Iftahel, and Katath, Nahalel, Shimron, Idalah, and Bethlehem, 12 cities and their settlements. This was the inheritance of the descendants of Zebulun by their families. These were their cities and their settlements. The fourth lot came out for Issachar, for the descendants of Issachar by their families, and the boundary was to Jezreel, Chesalah, Shunem, Hapharim, Shion, Anaharath, Rabith, Kishion, Ebez, Remeth, En-Ganim, Enhadah, and Bethpazaz. And the boundary reached to Tabor and Shahazuma and Bethshemesh, and the end of their border was at the Jordan, 16 cities and their settlements. This was the inheritance of the tribe of Issachar by their families, the cities and their settlements. Then the fifth lot came out for the tribe of Asher by their families, and their boundary was Helkath, Hali, Beten, Akshaph, Alamelech, Amad, Mishal. It reached westward to Carmel and to Shihor-Libnath, and it went back toward the east to Beth-Dagon, and reached to Zebulun and the valley of Iftahel to the north, to Beth-Emek and Nail, and it extended to Kabul on the left, and to Ebron, Rehob, Haman, and Kana as far as the great Sidon. And the boundary went back to Ramah as far as the fortified city of Tyre. And the boundary went back to Hosah, and it ended at the city in the region of Aksib, Umah, Aphek, and Rehob, 22 cities and their settlements. This was the inheritance of the tribe of Asher by their families. These were the cities and their settlements. The sixth lot came for the descendants of Naphtali, by their families. Their boundary was from Heleth, from the big tree in Zaananim, and Adab-Inikeb, and Jabneel as far as Lakum, and it ended at the Jordan. The boundary went back westward to Aznath Tabor, and extended from there to Hukok, and reached to Zebulun on the south, and to Asher on the west, and to Judah at the Jordan toward the east. And the fortified cities were Ziddim, Zur, Hamath, Rakath, Chinnereth, Adamah, Ramah, Hazor, Kadesh, Edrei, Enhazor, Iran, Migdalel, Horem, Bethanath, and Bethshemesh, 19 cities and their settlements. This was the inheritance of the tribe of Naphtali by their families, the cities and their settlements. The seventh lot came out for the tribe of Dan by their families, and the border of their inheritance was Zorah, Eshtaol, Irshemesh, Sha'alabin, Aijalon, Ithla, Elon, Timnah, Ikron, Eltekah, Gibbethon, Baalath, Jehud, Benabarak, Gathrimmon, Mejarkon, and Rakkon, with the border facing Joppa. But the territory of Dan was too cramped for them, so they went up and fought against Lashem and captured it and struck it with the sword. Then they took possession of it and settled in it, and they changed the name of Lashem to Dan, and the name of Dan, their forefather, after the name of Dan, their forefather. This was the inheritance of the tribe of Dan by their families. These were the cities and their settlements. Thus they finished dividing the lands for their inheritance by its territories. Then the Israelites gave Joshua, the son of Nun, an inheritance in their midst. At the order of Jehovah, they gave him the city he asked for, Timnath-Serah, and the mountainous region of Ephraim, and he built up the city and settled in it. These were the inheritances that Eleazar the priest, Joshua the son of Nun, and the heads of the paternal houses of the tribes of Israel distributed by lot in Shiloh before Jehovah at the entrance of the tent of meeting. So they finished apportioning the land. Joshua 20. Then Jehovah said to Joshua, "Tell the Israelites, select for yourselves the cities of refuge, about which I spoke to you through Moses, so that the manslayer who unintentionally or accidentally kills someone may flee there. And they will serve as a refuge for you from the avenger of blood. He must flee to one of these cities and stand at the entrance of the city gate and present his case in the hearing of the elders of that city. Then they must receive him into the city and give him a place, and he will live with them. If the avenger of blood chases after him, they should not surrender the manslayer into his hand, for he killed his fellow man accidentally, and he did not previously hate him. He must dwell in that city until he stands trial before the assembly, and remain there until the death of a high priest, who is in the office at that time. Then the manslayer may return to the city from which he fled, and he may enter his city and his house." So they gave a sacred status to Kadesh in Galilee and the mountainous region of Naphtali, Shechem in the mountainous region of Ephraim, and Kiriath Arba, that is Hebron, and the mountainous region of Judah. In the region of the Jordan, east of Jericho, they selected Bezer in the wilderness of the tableland, out of the land of Reuben, Ramoth in Gilead, out of the tribe of Gad, and Golan, and Bashan out of the tribe of Manasseh. These became the cities appointed for all the Israelites and for the foreign residents residing among them, so that anyone who unintentionally killed someone could flee there and not die by the hand of the avenger of blood prior to standing trial before the assembly. And that is the end of AV23.